Right, hey guys, how are we doing? Back another video from Totally Not Mark, and today we are checking out ranking every anime and manga tier list. Now, when he says every anime and manga, I feel like it's just going to be the ones that he has reviewed. Because for it to be 25 minutes long, I don't think it's going to be every anime and manga, but yeah. So this should be fun. Check this out, and make sure you check out my Etsy shop and support my Patreon page, $1 a month. Boom.
Over the last few years on this channel, we have reviewed quite a few of the world's most popular anime and manga. Some might call me an expert, others might
Quality content.
might call me a professional bad takes haver, but regardless, we have reviewed everything from Dragon Ball to Keijo. So
The KJO review was boss. I've still not watched the Attack on Titan review because I haven't finished. I think when the anime finishes, I'll probably check that out some other video.
So, I think the time has finally come for me to rank each and every one of the stories I've covered on this channel in one big tier list.
And in all fairness, right, I don't think I would have got into One Piece, and I don't think I would have got into Berserk if it wasn't for Mark having the reviews, because I wanted to react to them as he was doing them and to get his opinion on it. So he's influenced my many purchases.
The content and selection of which will likely haunt me for the rest of my career because taste is a fickle thing. Despite this, however, I think it could be a fun trip down memory lane revisiting some of these great stories to share my thoughts after so much time having passed. Have my judgments remained the same on these series, or have the sands of time crushed my spirit? You'll have to stay tuned to find out, and kicking this list off, fittingly, we're beginning with the story that started it all for me. I'm of course talking about the one, the only, Dragon Ball series.
Oh, but yeah, he's going to be having to separate them obviously because he doesn't like GT, so yeah.
I have covered Dragon Ball extensively on this channel.
Oh, yeah.
There's no hiding it. And as many of you know, this series takes many different forms, and in this case, ranks in many different ways depending on which one you're referring to. As a reviewer, I've been fortunate to cover brilliant stories, and while there are aspects I loved from Dragon Ball GT, it is by far the product I enjoyed the least upon revisit and review. I liked the concept behind Baby and the overall execution of the arc.
Yeah, some of the ideas were boss. It was just the way they did it. Just
minus its ending. I liked the final Spirit Bomb with Kid Goku, and largely I liked the last episode too.
Yeah,
but I think that's despite the series more so than it is a direct result of it. With that said, there's clearly a ton of potential in the series, and if you like it, I can sort of see why. Sort of, but for me, when comparing it to other properties on this list, it's a solid D tier entry. In saying that, while I prefer Dragon Ball Super,
right, so you're separating them all.
It isn't much better. Plagued early on with 2 recap arcs possessing
yeah, the recap arcs were annoying.
Animation so bad it launched my career here on YouTube. It had story.
Still checking those out, by the way. I will be checking. Well, it's the best animation moments now, isn't it? Or have I? Oh, I can't remember. I think I've got one more worst.
Storylines that made absolutely zero logical sense when you stop to think about it, and even the parts that are considered the best material, they still are surrounded by quite a lot of bloat. Despite this, however, I'd be lying if I said Super didn't ignite the kid inside me like anything else. I'm a massive Dragon Ball fan if it wasn't abundantly clear.
Tournament of Power, just wow.
And unlike GT, I felt Super offered more moments to rally behind and praise when all was said and done.
Yeah.
I really liked Ultra Instinct. Goku Black as a character was so damn
sick.
fun. And again, this
Goku Black was amazing.
Despite some truly cursed animation schedules early on, Toei was able to deliver some of the best episodic animation the franchise had ever seen up until that point. Plus, some of the new stuff in the manga is pretty fun too. Overall, I'd rank Super slightly higher than GT, maybe a high C tier. Now that we've gotten the sequel series out of the way, time to talk about classic Dragon Ball. I loved this
I still need to get into this. I need to watch this at some point, man.
story. I love this material.
If I didn't have a full-time job on top of my YouTube channel, then I'd probably have watched every single anime in existence, but
And it holds a special place in my heart. I want so desperately to put it in S tier right off the bat, but let's take a closer look at things. The first arc is pure 80s Toriyama gold in all of its glory. It's a solid first glimpse into the wacky world of Dragon Ball.
I liked his review. His reviews have made me want to watch it.
So I'd give it a solid A. Every, and I mean every tournament in this series is S tier in my
The choreography is just fantastic. I've seen some of the fights. It's just boss.
opinion, which leaves the Red Ribbon Army arc and the King Piccolo arc. The Red Ribbon Army arc is fun, but I'd still be inclined to give it an A or a B. But King Piccolo I've never gelled with personally. I find him largely uninteresting as a villain. I find that the arc is plagued with problems, from contrivances surrounding Goku's survival during
Oh yeah, the heart stopping and then him just walking away. And then the theory of, ooh, Bardock's wish was what did that.
Piccolo and his first encounter, to Goku drinking some magic water that makes him suddenly stronger. Something that actively flies in the face of a prior lesson Goku learns during the Red Ribbon Army arc, funnily enough. Toriyama was ill during this, and while I'm inclined to believe that impacted the story greatly, it can't exactly change my impression of the arc overall. It is what it is. I'd rank it a C perhaps, and so with that all taken into consideration, despite this early pre-Z material containing perhaps my favorite arc in the entire series, I can't see it fair to give it anything more than an A tier ranking personally.
C, it's got to be S, man. Let's go.
Competition is strong, so I gotta keep S tier sacred for now. Also, stay tuned later this summer for when I, for the first time on this channel, review Dragon Ball Z. Next up, One Piece.
Oh yeah, he hasn't done Dragon Ball Z reviews, has he? Cool. Gotta go for One Piece.
This
I only know the song because I had to. What was it? There's a collab video that came out like a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. Was it 2021? And I did like a little clip for it.
is the first story I covered on this channel outside of Dragon Ball, and my god, was it a long but brilliant adventure.
Mate, I mean, I'm glad like this did make me get into One Piece, like checking out these reviews, wanting to check out each story arc and see what Mark thought. Like, it's boss. I kind of stopped reading the manga now because I don't like reading it online. I was trying to read it weekly, and then I'm just at a point where I'm like, no, I'm going to wait until the volumes come out and then read them like that. So I've got volume 101, and it's annoying because I've still read everything in 101, but I'm going to keep buying them, and then it'll get to a point where I'm like, oh, I've not read this, and then, yeah, so I'm behind intentionally now. I wasn't enjoying reading it online.
Spanning across 5 solid months and 24 individual review parts, my review of One Piece was a roller coaster, with me experiencing some of the most comprehensive, revealing, and impressively consistent character and story writing I had ever been exposed to.
Incredible.
No
One Piece
manga
is
had
boss,
made
man.
me cry as frequently and consistently
I cried over a boat, man.
as One Piece, which is a testament to how well Oda realizes and writes his characters. Despite oftentimes being silly or offbeat, there are very few characters in this story that you could consider truly one-dimensional, with Oda and his team breathing new life into this world and its inhabitants wherever they can, leading to some of the most heartbreaking, inspiring, epic, and action-packed scenes out there for consumption today. In more ways than one, One Piece helped to give me the courage to step out of my comfort zone and explore new material on my channel, and I honestly don't know where I would be if I hadn't taken that leap of faith.
Yeah,
With
man.
that said, I am in a ruthless mood today, and S tier I don't think is for this series either.
Ooh, intro. I wonder if he's going to put anything in S tier then. Interesting. Berserk, maybe.
While the writing in One Piece is quite literally in a league of its own,
Oh, yeah.
there's more to storytelling when it comes to manga, and for me, for my personal tastes, Oda's paneling, particularly from the
Yeah, the paneling does get a bit weird, doesn't it?
halfway point onward, really began to get cluttered and
Crammed,
became at
crammed.
times off-putting for me when I was making my way through that material. I've had conversations with folks who say this is a clear S-tier entry, and I can't exactly argue against what they like and enjoy. For me though, the panel work holds it back. One Piece sits proudly atop A tier.
I think that's why I'm not liking reading it online, because it's sometimes so clumped up in that, and it's like scrolling to the next, where I prefer having the book and just being able to be like, kind of like, figure it out. I don't know.
And so, with One Piece now snugly in the A tier spot, I wonder, will the next one crack the all too elusive S tier?
What we got? Oh, mate.
Hunter x Hunter has two
Aw,
relatively
mate.
popular adaptations, each of which come with its own fan bases, which
Swing.
makes sense because both offer very different experiences. And while 2011 lends itself to such awesome and whimsical tones thanks to its color scheme and artistic approach, not to mention that slapping theme song, I think for me, it was 99's darker interpretation of the source material's manga that offers the most accurate version of the story.
I need to watch that, I guess. Is it on Crunchyroll? I'll find out next time on this exciting episode of Dan's Internal Monologue. dog externally.
Plus, did you know that bungee gum has the properties of both rubber
And
and
gum?
And I'm a lover of the 90s animation aesthetic. It does, however, lose points for not covering nearly as much material as the 2011 variant, which at least feels like it reaches an endpoint to some extent. But this is where I'm going to get a little introspective here. When I dive into my reviews, one of my favorite things to do is research the author of the material as best I can to get a better handle on what exactly they are trying to say in their stories. However, when I did this with Togashi, the writer of Hunter x Hunter, it opened me up to the tortured, painful, and at times very dark world of a man struggling to sustain his physical health long enough to finish the story that he loves.
Like, yeah, like he would have the weekly stuff come out, and then for the actual volumes, he'd redraw the money because it felt like so pressured to have like the releases done, and then he was like, well, no, I'm not completely happy with that. Let's put out a better looking bit. It's like, ugh.
Whether it be through interviews, reports, or direct text quotes from the beginning of each individual manga volume, these literal cries for help I felt began to permeate what was already a story with a darkness that resided beneath its surface, leading to one of the darkest feeling clouds hanging over the conclusion of any review series I've ever covered. When I throw myself into my work, I really try to immerse myself into the story and the world, and whether it was bad timing, whether it was caused by my research of Togashi, or whether I'm an overly sensitive person. By the time the final arc rolled around, I felt emotionally impacted by the material to such an extent that it literally altered my mood for the worse during the final stretch. And so I find ranking this particular story quite difficult. It's not like I haven't covered extremely dark material on my channel either, so my guess is as good as yours as to why I felt this way. But I do have a theory. In the same way I as a reviewer can appreciate the astounding merit of something like the Lord of the Rings trilogy without it necessarily being the sort of story that resonates with me personally, I can also appreciate how utterly emotionally cataclysmic something like Hunter x Hunter objectively is for millions around the world. With that said, I don't think Togashi would say that this series is without compromise either, given his circumstances, and personally, even if we remove the fact that this Ants arc wasn't for me personally, there were some creative decisions.
Chimera Ant arc is just incredible in my personal opinion.
Like having the entire infiltration of the Ants base suddenly get presented out of nowhere through a narrator that I found rather perplexing. And that said, the series is largely brilliant and it made me cry on more than one occasion, so it must have been doing something very, very right. Plus, the arcs I covered I liked the vast majority of, so I think for Hunter x Hunter, I'm comfortable sitting in a top A tier 2.
Okay.
So, which is going to be the next one we're going to tackle on this tier list?
JoJo's! I'm so good.
JoJo's Bizarre Adventure was a weird one. I know that is not a joke. This is a series that very much lived up to the bizarre in its title.
It does. Oh.
And as those of you that have actually watched this review series of mine know, I went into this review of the manga material with a rather indifferent, or perhaps more accurately, a bad impression of the story from the famed mangaka Araki. Manga is by far and away my absolute favorite method of consuming these stories. Movies are fine, anime is great, and I totally see the appeal animation and music offers to the series, but I just cannot express how much better my experience with a story often is when I consume the material via the manga.
Yeah, I mean, I need to read the manga at some point. I'm trying to read part 7 online, and I don't know what it is. I don't like reading the mangas online or on a screen. I like having the books, but I'll try and get back into it. London Comic Con had a really cool pop-up JoJo's store thing, which had like a game that you could play, and then like a prison to pose with like Jolene and Weather Report and all this other stuff, which hopefully I recorded enough to put up in the video I'll be putting up sometime this week. But mate, as soon as I see anything JoJo's, I'm like, it's so cool.
I get to control my own pacing of the events to an extent. I enjoy deconstructing the page layouts to help me figure out what the author was thinking and perhaps where he's going. And unfortunately, for JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, I watched the anime first, and needless to say, it wasn't my bag at all.
I loved it. I think I've watched how many times? I've watched the first 4 parts like 3 times now, I think. Yeah.
However, when I read the manga, I really enjoyed the first 3 or 4 parts. And funnily enough, it was part 5, the part that I had to watch instead of read through, that I once again disliked far more compared to the rest that I read. Outside of the material I found within the confines of the manga, I discovered a tremendous respect for Araki through reading the book he wrote about his life and indeed the challenges he faced as a mangaka. We're talking about a guy that had his back against the wall and instead of following trends, decided to blaze his own trail fearlessly, creating what is today one of the most prolific franchises in this industry. But despite my respect for Araki, I still have to give my impression on JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, overall that of which I've read at least. I really liked the first 3 parts, as I said. I liked the 4th well enough, though I didn't think it lived up to the tremendous hype that people had surrounding it, though then again I don't think it ever could. And the 5th didn't click with me too well, though I did enjoy parts of it. The question, I think, is whether I give this series a B or an A. I'm inclined to give it a B, but
give it an A. You give it an A, you bastard.
Only because I was forced to watch the anime of the 5th part instead of reading it because the material hadn't been officially released yet.
Yeah.
Which admittedly could have changed my opinion on it in the same way my opinion had been changed on the first 3 parts. Who knows, I might pick this up and read the material once it's released in the manga, but until then, JoJo exceeded any and all expectations and sits nicely on B tier. Which brings me to...
Naruto! Some Linkin Park. What's the track called? Oh, I can't remember. Mr. Hard.
This one will be interesting to chat about, okay? So, of the many manga I've created reviews for, this is up there as one of the very most popular. Hundreds of thousands of people watched this series, the vast majority of which were either quite young or had grown up with that material. I, however, did neither. When I reviewed the Naruto series, I was 30 and had genuinely not seen a single episode of the show or chapter of the manga prior to picking up it for said review series.
I was reading it weekly as it came out. From the Shippuden part. Like, not part 1, but yeah.
Given that the target audience was younger than my demo, and given that I was about to experience this story free of nostalgia, I was concerned I might not resonate with the material in a way that could be constructive or entertaining to the viewers I had. But Naruto surprised me, not just with the surprisingly mature subject matter concerning generational inheritance of responsibility, but additionally in how Naruto as a character reflected the agonizing journey towards success Kishimoto, the author, found himself on. This series, while I might not have loved it or resonated with it for the same reasons I might have when I was 10 years old, like I did with Dragon Ball, there was sufficient heart, humor, and depth to these stories and characters that genuinely ignited my imagination in a way that held my attention from beginning to end. I really don't think I can ask for much more than that with a story like this. I had some issues with it as I read along, and my god did some characters
Yeah, the ending is a bit weird, but yeah.
Won't name names, make some questionable decisions which created contrived conflict. I will still, however, award this series an A tier. I really did enjoy the
I reckon he's going to put Berserk in S, man.
vast majority of it, and it even managed to squeeze a few tears out of me while my guard was down. But yeah, that's Naruto. Next up is... I'm going to try to keep this one real quick and concise, given I have not yet completed the story proper, but while I am here, I will award this series a spot on B tier while I await the time for me to review the 1000 Years Blood War.
I will be checking that out.
Which might be the most metal arc title I've ever heard. I love
1000 Year Blood War arc.
The heart behind this series. I love the plot direction and growth for the character of Ichigo, and the artwork is something else. Unlike more crowded and exhausting reads like One Piece, Bleach's manga manages to stay breezy and fun to read by keeping things stunningly illustrated, utilizing white space, and always keeping page layout at the forefront of their minds. With that said, I do think that some of the arcs, namely the Arrancar arc, could have been significantly shorter without impacting the plot much at all, and they might have even seen some benefits by doing so. I get that a lot of folks must love the fight scenes in this series, and that's cool by me. I'm glad that you like it, but after tens and tens of chapters of what felt like the same thing over and over again, I felt like the pacing could have been helped greatly had a greater emphasis been placed on story over the fighting itself. Perhaps I just have an entirely different taste in manga to most Bleach fans, and that is very possible. The Fullbring arc was honestly my favorite arc out of the entire read, and
Which is so interesting. Because I never read the full Bring Up manga. I need to do that.
Ironically, that isn't the case with the greater fan
Yeah, like a lot of people just hate. I like me. I don't hate it. I just really. I didn't like it.
base. It was concise, it was
It
mysterious,
felt like
and the
filler.
artwork was outstanding. It even got me
that does look
excited for
cool.
what was to come next. So yeah, for now, I think it's cool to place this on B tier, but who knows, it might go up after I finish reading the next arc. Next up,
Oh. S tier. Let's go. Gotta be S tier. It's got to be S tier.
this story is still fresh in my mind, having just finished it a couple
just
of weeks
recent,
ago as
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
writing this video. But man, does this story feel like it was perfectly conceived of, illustrated, written, and delivered to my eyes. This is a story that lives up to every single last ounce of hype surrounding it. It destroyed me emotionally, captured my imagination with its world, and offered plenty to talk about week in and week out while I was reading and reviewing it. This is a story that's built such a powerful foundation that there are two entirely different interpretations of the story that have their own independent fan bases that swear their version is the best over the other. I don't think I've ever come across an instance where this has been the case with a given story. And if you watch my review series concerning it, you'll notice that I too struggled to find fault with this material, which is why I'm confident that this one can sit nicely as our first S tier
There we
entry.
go.
And by the looks of it, with our next entry,
Nice.
Fullmetal Alchemist might be getting some company up there.
Oh, Mob Psycho. These
Every single
covers are
time
sick.
I review a story on this channel, it comes with a flood of, oh my god, you're gonna love this series, I just know it, it's the best! And while I do normally, as this tier list will reflect, love the stories I cover, there are very few that actually live up to that hype 100%. And maybe there's just one other that did. That made it to this level of, wow, it feels as though this series was
Psycho's great,
tailor-made for me. Mob Psycho 100 is an emotional series.
Yeah.
It's a hilarious series. Hell, this is just a terrific show from
got
top to
everything.
bottom.
It's got
Everything from the
everything.
themes explored to the broken characters that take center stage for us to watch as they struggle through their lives and grow from the traumas they encounter collectively. Out of every other single anime on this list, this stands as by far my favorite. It ruined me emotionally at the finish of each and every season. It knew exactly what it wanted to say, and it did not overstay its welcome like so many others I could argue are guilty for. Also, the music. Can we just talk about the music for a second? The OPs to this series were phenomenal,
So
but
good.
I think the OST gets overlooked sometimes here. The strange instrumentation that echoes each and every one of
Yeah,
Mob's power
that weird
boosts is to
instrument.
this day able to bring shivers to my skin. It's just such an incredible series, and if it wasn't obvious already, I liked it even more than Fullmetal Alchemist, if that was even possible. If you haven't checked it out, please do. Reagan is awesome, and next up, something a little stranger.
Diamond in the name of devil!
Chainsaw Man is a weird one to rank, as unlike most previous entries on this list, I've actually seen both the anime and
the
manga
manga,
versions,
yeah.
and with this story, each version offers a very different experience despite covering the same material.
Yeah, it really is different. Like how they just paused and overread me, but yeah, they are. But I really enjoyed both. Yeah, and I've started part 2. I read the first 2 chapters of part 2, and again, I think I'm just gonna wait for the volumes to come out now. I don't like rushing myself and feel like I have to read stuff to keep up with everybody else. Like, it's part of the reason why I do it. I'm just going to wait until the next volume comes out and just read that, which I think is November.
With the manga, we get pure, unfiltered, and hilarious Fujimoto in all of his glory, and things get really weird. Hilarious, but extremely weird.
It's very
and while I
strange.
would say that the anime adaptation is largely enjoyable, it is so in a very different way to that which Fujimoto's pure version might demonstrate. The anime itself is clearly directed by an individual with a distinct and obvious vision for how he sees things ought to be. And that's fair. This is how he sees Chainsaw Man, and so who am I to say that he's wrong if this is what he sees when he watches it?
I mean, it's artistic, isn't it? It's very like, I'm going to add little bits that don't need to be there and just drag out. Like, guy in the center there, I'm terrible with names, where it's literally just him just sorting his breakfast out and sitting down outside on the patio. Like, that that didn't happen in the manga, but it was a nice little addition.
It's not like it doesn't look outstanding at times and offers a ton in its own right. It absolutely does. But what I will say is that what I love about Chainsaw Man's manga was that it felt entirely new. Unlike anything I'd ever read before, like the latest iteration of older ideas that came before. It plays with shapes, ideas, choreography, and pacing in such a frenetic fashion, all the while presenting it in some of the most imaginative ways I've ever seen put to paper. This is all to say that Chainsaw Man's manga feels distinctly its own thing, while the anime feels sort of like it's trying to be like something else, something that already exists, which might be unfair, but that's just how I felt after having watched it. Again, massively enjoyed it, just not in the same way I thought I would. That said, the manga is outstanding, so I think I'll slot Chainsaw Man in on A tier.
Okay. Mate, so just a quick one. When I was at London Comic Con, there's an artist there that whenever I go to Comic Con, love seeing, and they absolutely nailed the cover of this, like sick.
There's a reason this wasn't a review series. There's a reason I wrote a near 3-hour-long review of this story. There's a reason why it's the most viewed video on my entire channel by far. It's because I had to gush and I loved it so damn much that I had to make what was, at the time, the biggest review on my channel. Also, I really like the idea of calling this review the Colossal Review, and I stand by that decision.
I need to
was
check
all
it.
worth
When
the
the
effort
anime's
just so
over,
that I could
I'll do
have
that
one
and the
massive
final
video
chapter.
with that title. I started watching this.
They reviewed that and then reviewed the final chapter separately. So I think like when the anime's finished, I will check that out at some point.
Series as it came out back in 2013, and I had kept up with it all the way to the ending. And don't worry, I won't be sharing any spoilers here, just my general thoughts. But in short, I don't think any other series on this list got me as excited to pick up and read the manga more than this story did. It's so well crafted and conceived, and while I know there are those out there that don't enjoy some parts of it, I loved it all. With that said, I didn't read the extended bonus chapter Isayama wrote after the series had technically finished outright, and I feel like if I do, I might not like it as much given people's reception about it. So yeah, if you don't like that I didn't read it, I don't care. This is going to be S tier. Moving on. I didn't cover this story so much in a review as I did analyze the greater story in general in a single shorter video, so I'll keep this one equally short. This is one of the first anime I watched while understanding what anime was in the first place. It's a classic, one that no doubt has stripped the social life of
my favorite anime because it just so good.
Many adolescents, myself included. But you know what? The first half of the story is so damn good, it almost made it worth it. And to be honest, I'm one of the few out there that actually quite enjoyed the second half too, but however, even with that second half being a little lackluster compared to the first, the ending that we landed on was sensational, and the overall message of the piece was very interesting. If I was just considering the first half with L and the ending on its own, it'd be a shoo-in for S tier. But alas, I need to stick it in the bottom of A tier, maybe B tier. I'm gonna put it in A tier. And so now the time has come for the best manga I've ever reviewed on this channel. Drum roll, please.
Berserk. Yeah. Mate, what a story. Absolutely phenomenal story, man. Absolutely phenomenal.
I finished reading and reviewing Berserk well over a year ago, and I swear to you all right now, not a day goes by without me thinking about a lesson I learned from this story at least once per day. There is quite literally nothing like this story on the market today. Nothing that can remotely come close to the colossal effort this manga boasts. I mean, this is quite literally the life's work of the now late great Kentaro Miura. Flick through to a random page in this manga and you'll no doubt discover a panel or two worthy of being a poster or mural on a wall.
Yes.
Where so much of the stories I cover deal with similar subject matter surrounding adolescence, there's a few lessons in here that I think everyone would benefit from learning at any point in their lives and experiencing through this book. particularly if you might have troubling or distant relationship with your parents and or feel isolated. I won't dare spoil a single word of this for any of you out there, but this is the manga that literally changed my outlook on life for the better, and to say that it's an S tier entry almost seems unsatisfactory. It almost deserves more, so
Double
if you
S.
haven't seen it, I beg you to give it a shot. I know you won't regret it. This is the best manga on this list, and I can't imagine anything will top this.
Of course. Keijo.
Hope you enjoyed today's video, and again, be sure to download Empires and Puzzles on either Apple's App Store or Android's Play Store.
Oh my god, that was so funny. Oh. Oh my god, I was just like, wait a minute, what else than just an ass? I remember watching the review for that, just absolutely loving it. That was just so funny. Oh my god, cool. Right. Anyway, make sure you check out my Etsy shop. Links in the description for t-shirts and hoodies that I've designed that you can purchase. That'll help support the channel. Greatly appreciated. And thank you to my patrons. If you want to have your name at the end of every video I upload, link in the description to the Patreon page. $1 a month is our support channel. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you for that. Thank you all for watching. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe, leave comments down below. Let me know I should watch go some future videos. I'll see you guys all guys next time.